everyone, Ann Wyatt here, Vice President of Client Success for Health Fitness. Welcome to the Health Fitness Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Health Fitness Podcast. So at Health Fitness, we know that great coaching does not happen by accident. It starts with investing in the people that deliver it. And that is why Health Fitness has invested in a partnership with Spectrum. Spectrum is a leader in sport and human performance education. So what really started, I guess, about 8 years ago with a way for us to strengthen our associates' development and really try to have a more focus on consistency so that across all of our sites, we had a common way of speaking to our participants, so really a health fitness way. It really evolved into what we call the HealthFitness Movement Training System, or you're going to hear me refer to it as MTS today. And what that really ended up being was a shared language that we could have all across our locations, and also just raising the bar for our coaching excellence nationwide. So in this episode, it's a real treat for me because we have the founders of Spectrum, Will Hitzelberger, who is the president of Spectrum, and Dan Schuck, who is the vice president of Spectrum. And they're going to talk with us today about how they got started, what problems they were trying to solve, and really they're going to talk to us about how they make health fitness better and why that's good for our participants all across the country. Really what happens is because of what they've trained our people in and what we've perpetuated throughout the health fitness book of business is that we have better movement for our participants that leads to better experiences, and ultimately we see those better outcomes. So Will and Dan, welcome to the Health Fitness Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, I want to dive right in because I think, I have a lot of questions for you today. I want to start with really what your origin story is. So for me, I want to understand, and for the audience, of course, can you share the story of how Spectrum even got started?
Yeah, we're just over 20 years in business, and to be in this for 20 years and some time before starting this, we've seen the industry evolve quite a bit. But I think in those early days for us, and even kind of like where the name comes from, we were trying to do something different, and we obviously didn't come up with this idea ourselves, but very few people were really combining. And the name Spectrum comes from the idea of we wanted to be able to provide the entire spectrum of performance to the people that we were working with, and that meant everything from like fitness and training to physical therapy to nutrition to rehabilitation, the entire spectrum. And that's kind of where we started. And obviously we were starting from the ground up, where we had 1,200 square foot facility. But that was the idea. And that was what the vision was from the very beginning. And, I would say it probably took us 10 years to where we were able to offer all those different services and be able to like put our stamp in this human performance industry where we are today. But yeah, that was kind of the original thoughts of it, was like, how do we didn't want to just be like a fitness studio. We didn't just want to be a small shop. We had this vision of really providing the full spectrum of what we could offer somebody who was coming to us kind of regardless of needs, but had high ambitions or high goals.
Well, and it's interesting. You mentioned you started in a 1,200 square foot facility, and I immediately thought, well, wow, what a long way you've come, because I've obviously been to your location now, and it's something to see. So I want to understand, what was the moment in your journey when you thought, it's not just about more effort, more reps, more intensity. It really came down to movement quality was the unlock. How did you get there?
I think having some roots in sports performance, like where you're trying to get a half an inch for an athlete or a tenth of a second, sets and reps didn't always get us there. And, you're trying to find those edges here and wherever you can get them. And sometimes it was that they couldn't get into the place that they wanted to. Their hips couldn't get there, or their ankles couldn't get there. And you quickly realize that it's more than just strength and power. And so I think, that was one of those where I go, okay, how else can we find efficiencies? How else can we get the body in better positions? How else can we do things that are going to, get these athletes at first? And then it immediately carried over to adults, like, oh, wait, they're having shoulder pain, not because, that they're not strong enough. It may be that they can't get to the right place
Right.
in a more efficient way. And so we were early adopters of, some of these names you'll hear, like, Gray Cook and the functional movement strain and the SFMA, and, NASM had its, corrective exercise specialist,
Yeah.
and those kind of areas and formats where you're looking at movement patterns and you're looking at, how we can make more efficiency or gain some different areas of range of motion that can lead to greater improvement. So that was kind of part of the journey all along. And
Yeah.
we noticed, where you get incremental jumps in strength and power, we were getting leaps and bounds when you change in efficiency. And so it was like, oh, okay, there's something here. Let's keep playing with that.
Right. I love that. And I should say that you work with, just to use the phrase, the spectrum of participants, because I've seen professional athletes when I've been down visiting you. I've seen college athletes. I've seen high school sports teams, but I've also seen the everyday, I'll say everyday Anns that come into your door just looking to improve their performance. And they may not be involved with sport, but they just want to be better. So you definitely do see that whole spectrum. The one thing I think I've seen is, your mission is around optimizing performance in sport and life. And I think about the everyday employee that we're working with so often. How does that look for them when you think about optimizing performance, and why does movement matter for these people?
Kelly Starrett kind of coined the phrase "sitting is the new smoking," and
Yeah.
I just think movement is key to everything we do now, and we're just becoming a more and more sedentary population, and I think it's as simple. I think that word movement can be as simple as that. People just need to move more. Period.
Yeah.
I think when, as experts in the field or professionals in the field, I shouldn't coin myself an expert, as a professional in the field, I think it's important that we can provide different levels of movement and different progressions and regressions of movement. But I think at the end of the day, people just need to move more. They need to get up and they need to walk in the morning. They need to walk after dinner. They need to move. I mean, you've heard when we do our educations, these 90-degree angles that we get stuck in, with the foot and shin angle at 90 degrees, the knee angle at 90 degrees, and the hip at 90 degrees. And we tell this story of somebody goes from this horizontal position, from sleeping. They go sit down in a chair to eat breakfast. They walk to the car. They sit down in their car in their commute. They walk to their desk and they sit down in their desk all day. And then they get back up and they go sit in their car and they get home and they sit. And so I think that when we talk about life, I think our overall message is people just need to move more. And, we're here to like spearhead that and help with movement in our structured environment. But at the end of the day, to optimize performance in life, people just need to move better. And kind of like Dan was alluding to before, we have ways to make movement easier or healthier or less pain-free, or more pain-free, I should say. And so, that's and that part of our mission to optimize performance in life, it is just about movement and hopefully getting people to move without pain for the majority of their life.
We find a lot of people, you don't know you've lost it until you go to try to do something that you haven't done in 4 years. And then you want to go play with your kids and run around and you're like, oh, wait, I just pulled my hamstring. And it's like, wait, I didn't know I was missing it because I hadn't done it in so long. And now I want to do it. And I don't have
reality check, right? Like,
yeah.
I think it's just helping people not get to that point of losing it, and it's like, or how can we get it back?
Right. Yeah. I know a lot of professionals out there, they can, and they do deliver workouts, but I think about the confidence that the training that you have developed for us has instilled in our professionals. And I think about all the things we're looking at in our participants and those angles you mentioned, things along those lines. But we call, of course, our people the MTS movement specialists. And so I think about what can a movement specialist that we have trained with under your tutelage, what can they do that a traditional certification path maybe just doesn't reliably produce when all is said and done?
I would say we probably built on a bunch of different certification paths, and what the MTS probably does is creates a framework more than anything. Almost in the way that if you think of walking outside and looking at the world through, the eyes that you are just doing, and then you do that same walk out and you put a pair of yellow sunglasses on or blue sunglasses, like the framing of what you're looking at changes. And I think for us, the framework of the MTS is it's a way to look at the body slightly differently. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one of the most fun things in our business is to create workouts, to program design, to come up with these awesome things to do. And your people do that amazingly well, you know, and what the MTS does is it gives them a lens to look at the body where it's like, okay, if you were to do a family feud of like, hey, what are the top 3 places people have pain? You know, like top 3 answers on the board: shoulder pain, back pain, knee pain, right? Well,
Right.
those probably come from some instability or some lack of motion in the scaps, or some
Yep.
things with the pelvis, or some things with the spine. And what the MTS has done is it's like, hey, here's these bottlenecks that most people have. Here's a strategy
Mm-hmm.
and a tool set for how to approach those issues that, you know, most people are coming to the table with. And then, oh, by the way, be your amazing self and bring all the cool things that you have built up and learned from all these other certifications, all these other knowledge places, and they can plug and play into the framework. And
Right.
this now gives you an idea of like, hey, here's the path to take
Mm-hmm.
to get you to the goal that you want to do. And, you know, like a lot of what I think we say to the participants that come here is like, hey, the client, you need to give the client what they want, which is the end goal that they always tell you. But in the process of that, we need to give them what they need. And it may be range of
Right.
motion, and it may
Right.
be, you know, hip mobility, or it may be some stability around these areas. And I think that that framework that the MTS is built around is it kind of gives you a guiding path to take. And that's
Right.
what I think that, you know, like that differentiates that group of people is like, oh, I know how to solve that little issue that they're dealing
Right.
with right now.
Right. So I know that movement training system, it's really built as a journey over time. It has live touch points, it has phases involved, it has a final exam. We have continuing education, and it's a continuous cycle for our people, and they seem to really be embracing it and loving it, of course, because they're seeing the difference it's making with their participants. Why did you design it that way? You know, what was your thinking? It could have been a one and done, and good luck to you, but you guys really took care a little bit differently.
Yeah, you know how different Dan and I are. I mean, that
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
probably just see on this, and I think it really comes from like just being totally different learners too.
Yeah.
I think that when we designed this, you kind of touched on them. There's things you have to read, there's things you have to watch, there's things you have to demonstrate, and everybody learns differently. That this
Yeah.
is one part of it, and so we wanted to make sure when we put a curriculum together that we were checking all the boxes of how somebody would take in the information.
Right.
And so that's why that's one of the reasons there are so many different touch points, is just people's ability to absorb information is very unique and very different. I struggled just reading one page of information, but I could like watch something for an hour, type of thing.
Right.
And then
Right.
the other side of it is, it takes reps to be good at something,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously in this education system, you have to do a lot of reps, not only on the learning side, on the intake side of, reading, watching, touching, but you then have to turn around and coach this. And so, and then you have to receive feedback, and then you have to do it again. And those reps is what makes people very good at it. And so,
Yeah.
that's very much when we were thinking, we deploy this in-house on a little different level, but we kind of took that, in-house. It's, people come here and they spend 30 hours a week in our methodology, in our education
Right.
system. And so we were trying to figure out, how do we do that to somebody remote? And so that's the idea, is the different learning points, and then reps, because that's really how you get good at something.
So how do you keep the quality consistent so it's not just coach dependent? Because I think, we have this methodology that we're employing all across the country, and I think it really has helped us come up with that health fitness way, so that no matter where you are having that same experience. But how are you doing that?
When we initially, met with you all and we started looking at some of the sites, you guys hire amazing people. And when we were talking to them, it was like, oh, well, this person, they work with our runners because she runs and she knows this stuff. And this person over here, he
Mhm.
works with our athletes, because
Right.
like he was a college baseball player, and he's amazing at that kind of stuff. And what we have found that is, if you give them a system like you said, they can all speak the same language. So now here's a system and a guiding principles. Here's a way to talk about things together. Now you're building on each other's knowledge. So when they do
Right.
get into a site, they've got 3, 4 other people who are kind of seeing the same path and the same system, but they also
Mm-hmm.
bring their own individual stuff to the table. And that's
Right.
amazing, right? And we
Right.
get to build on all those pieces. But it also gives a chance for a manager. If I'm a manager of a site and I have the same, basic principles and foundations and everything that we want to do, if I give you feedback, it's not coming out of left field or my own perspective. It's coming out of a shared book of knowledge, and that then allows us to hold each other accountable. So
Yeah.
yes, we absolutely, it's a service industry. You want
Yeah.
those unique individuals, you want those unique professionals, and you want their backgrounds to build from. But you also want consistency. And so I think
Right.
the ability to talk to each other, go from one site to another site, have each other give each other feedback, that's really important for that
Right.
quality control. So
Right.
that's probably the most simple version of that.
No, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the future. I'd love to know how you see the movement training or just the education around it evolving as we look forward. What are your thoughts? And I will call you experts because Will, you guys are. You just are. You just have to own it.
We try to be. We try to be. There's just so much information out there now, and
Hmm.
I think this is kind of what maybe you asked. Dan was kind of answering with like framework and methodology,
Right.
but there's so much information out there. We often ask like, how do you organize it? And
Mm.
one of the things, we have two operating methodologies within our business. We have our sport methodology and our fitness methodology. And
Right.
when all this new stuff is coming out, we continue to try to say like, what do we do with it and how do we organize it? But I think these methodologies allow us to do that. And so
Yeah.
when something new comes out or something resurfaces, our methodology, or as Dan was referencing, our framework allows us to take this new information and place it into that methodology. And so it's going to continue to come. How it comes, I mean, between social and AI, it's just going to
Yeah.
continue to evolve. And I think it can be intimidating with all the information that's coming in, but this is the value of having a system. And
Yeah.
I think in our industry, there's a lot of people operating out there without a system, and it's what makes health fitness more valuable now is to have this system to work in, and it's why we've been successful in hiring
Yeah.
new people. And we just have a system to work within, and as new information enters our industry, we just plug it in our system and we keep on rolling.
Yeah. So we talk about trends a lot on this podcast because this industry is full of trends, as you know. What trends do you see shaping the future when you look at performance optimization or recovery, any of those areas? What do you see out there?
Um, that's a big one. I think if you look at presently, it's building a little bit on kind of what Will said, but it's inputs. So
Mhm.
uh, getting recordables. So now you have wearables. We have GPS trackers. We have
Yeah.
wearables on our wrist that can tell us how you slept, how your heart rate's doing, how many steps you got, all that kind of stuff, right? We've
Right.
got what stuff we're using in our facility, like the force decks or a Nord board, which tells like gives you all kinds of feedback. And I
Yeah.
think when you look at the trend of those measurables, one of the challenges becomes an inundation of information. Like, are we just putting people on things? Oh, it gives us all this cool things, and you can log into this app, and it'll tell you this, and it'll tell you that, and it becomes like, so what do I do with that, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think one of the trends that's not stopping. I think we're only going to find more and more ways to measure things,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to take those measurements and then create an intervention or to create a like, oh, I understand this piece. Here's where I'm going to take that, and here's how it's going to change this client's journey
Yeah.
because of that feedback loop. And so, whether you're using velocity-based training, whether you're using force decks, whether you're using, a wearable for your own personal journey, like all
Yeah.
those things, I think are going to continue evolving. And I think maybe one other area that's going to go with that is the gamification of
Mm,
fitness, so
yeah.
to speak, is it's happening in our education, like not our own personal, it's happening in our education systems. I have, some kids that are, middle school age, and, they're doing that with their learning modules. They're doing that with like, hey, we're going to compete on this, quiz, and they get ranked based on that stuff. And I think we see with, CrossFit did this a long while ago where, hey, rank yourself on the board, and
Right.
that created a community, and it created oh, I did better than yesterday, or I did better than so-and-so down the street. And I think that kind of stuff for athletes, that stuff for adults is going to continue to evolve. It's how
Hmm.
you create some engagement. And so figuring out how to use all these wearables, all these, testable and data points, and then making it something that resonates with people. I think that's where a lot of this stuff is going. At least
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing in the near term. And phew, it's changing so rapidly to try to guess what it's going to look like in 3 years would be, I don't think I can wrap my head around it, but
Join
you
the
know, I,
club.
I see those two things, like measurement and then ranking. Those kind of
Okay.
things are like the things that we're seeing a lot of.
Got it. Excellent. Anything to add, Will?
No,
You covered it all.
right along with, he brought up the gamification thing, and that's something we're jumping on right now. And the interest in our clients on gamifying this stuff is just what the engagement, the
Yeah.
response from them has been wild. And so we're
Yeah.
doing it on social. I mean,
I've
we
noticed.
will
Yeah.
put something on, yeah, we'll put something on social, and we won't tag one person, and it'll have, so many shares just because people want to post that stuff. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
this term gamifying it's pretty wild. And so, I'm not sure exactly how it's fitting in the fitness world or the Gen Pop world yet, but
Yeah.
it in the sports world is pretty wild, and I'm sure it's going to fall into that as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Well, excellent. Well, wow, we went through a lot and we're just about out of time, but I still have to do my little quickie quiz with both of you. And that's when I ask you a couple of questions about how you're taking care of yourself. So, inquiring minds want to know, especially me. And one of them is, I want to know lately, what is your favorite workout to do?
Um, I'm recently back into sprinting.
Okay.
You know, I lift, 3 or 4 times a week. I cycle, but I am kind of dedicated to becoming more elastic right now. So I've got a group, and man, the first day we went out and sprinted, I got up from my desk like 2 hours later, and I was worried about what the next day was going to be like. But my body's adapting, and so high speed sprinting right now is something I'm trying to bring back
Work
to
in.
these legs.
Excellent. How about you, Dan?
I'd say I'm the exact opposite side of that spectrum. I've been
I'm
doing a
not
lot of
surprised.
I've been doing a lot of sprinting and stuff, and in the yard and jumping and all that. And I think for me, my journey right now is getting into significantly heavier lifting, trying to add a day or 2 day of more maximal lifting,
Okay.
and we've been using velocity based training tools quite a bit with some different populations, and so adding a speed component to the heavy lifting is starting to make it a little bit more interesting again. So that's probably, so, as usual, Will's going left and I'm going right, and that's kind
That's
of
why
where
we
we're
love
at.
you. Excellent. What is your favorite healthy snack right now?
Oh, go
I'll
ahead.
jump in. I like I have a portable blender in the office, and
Okay.
throwing a little water, some daily greens, and some creatine, and a frozen fruit of some sort, and blending up for a
Okay.
smoothie. That's my to go, like 5 minute gets me going. So
Got it. Okay. Good. Excellent.
I'm like so boring. I eat the same thing day in and day out, year in and year out. So my like go-to snack is like a cheese. It's like my
Okay.
natural protein bar. So
Okay. I love it.
raw cheese, actually, raw cheese.
Okay. Good to know. And my last one is, what is your favorite way to recover or recharge? We'll start with you, Will.
Ooh. Well, I just got back from North Carolina in the mountains,
Okay.
on the lake in the rivers. We usually try to get away for a week in the summer and do something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
just kind of getting out of this heat and doing something a little different outdoors.
Understood. Excellent. How about you, Dan?
uh, similar. I was going to say just in nature. If it's
Yeah.
beach, if it's mountains, if it's trail riding on a bike, those are like just getting outside, getting out in it, and getting after it playing. So that would probably be where we go.
That sounds fantastic. Well, listen, thank you both. It was fantastic to hear a little bit more what goes on in your brains and how this all came about. Appreciate your time today, and appreciate you, our audience, your time today. If you liked what you heard, please hit like and subscribe. Until next time, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found today's discussion both thought-provoking and enjoyable. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and share this episode with your colleagues and friends. We'd really love for you to stay connected with us. Until next time, take care, stay active, and stay curious.